Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Resident Evil Village. Now, I did not play this game for years. I saw the trailers, I saw the opening intro. I heard some stuff about it. I watched it come out, and it kind of, I don't know, I just wasn't really pulled to it. There were a couple of things that I thought looked cool, but I just thought, this kind of looks strange. There was something about it that kind of turned me off, and so I put it off getting it for years. And it was funny because I beat Resident Evil 7 almost right before they started advertising the game. And so I should have been the prime target audience for this game, but I just did not, for some reason, I had a feeling about the game. And also, before I really get into this video, I want to say a little something about what happened yesterday. It is absolutely horrible what happened to Charlie Kirk. He did not deserve to be killed, and it was a horrible thing that happened. And to be honest, I think that it's very obvious who did it. It's very obvious that it was somebody who Israel hired to do it. And so I think that it's just yet another thing that Israel has done to America. And, it's really sickening that we keep on, pretending that they're our greatest ally, and that we keep on funding their genocide in Palestine. And, I know that I don't talk politics on this channel, but genocide doesn't have anything to do with politics. It just has to do with humanity. And so, and also the shooting is also non-political. I mean, you don't have to be on either side to acknowledge that it was a terrible thing that happened. And yeah, I'm just, first off, I beat this game and I had to process it because it was so bad. And now I had to process what happened today or yesterday for you guys. I had to process it. And so these past 2 days, I've just been like, God, there's just so much crap in the world, and you have to. It takes time to process this kind of stuff. It takes a lot of time, and especially if you know the people involved, or if you're really close to whatever happens. It takes a long time to process these kinds of things, and so I kind of wanted to do this video to kind of get my mind off of the subject, because it was just a very frustrating experience, kind of, and I'm not laughing. I'm just in shock. I'm just completely taken back. And you guys can also tell my I'm starting to get throat allergy issues right now. But anyways, I put off playing Resident Evil Village, but I finally decided to play it because I really wanted a fun, good game to beat, and something to, because I've been playing the same games for a year on the PS4. I've been playing Dead Island 2, GTA 5, and I think one other game. And so I've been just kind of bored with the games that I've been playing. So I thought it'll be really fun to finally go and beat Resident Evil 8, the sequel to one of my favorite games of all time, Resident Evil 7. And, I was so excited. I thought there's going to be vampires, there's going to be werewolves, there's going to be a scary village. I'm so excited. I want it to be scary. I want it to be exciting. I want it to feel like the 7th one. And unfortunately, right off the bat, I was reminded of the reason why I was turned off of playing the game to begin with, which is the game starts off with you're Ethan and you're living in Europe now, which I gotta say, like, the whole setup to this game, it's like an action movie. It's like a Hollywood like action sequel, or just it has like strong blockbuster sequel vibes. The way that it's like, oh, he lives in Europe now, Ethan Winters, and oh, he's got to deal with all this shit again. And that's the kind of vibe that I got, like, oh, great, my character has to deal with all this shit again. Like, he has to go through all this shit with the zombies and the vampires, the werewolves. He's got to go through this epic thing where he's got to defeat all these bosses, and he's got to jump out of buildings and shit. And that's the feeling. So it was very much like a blockbuster movie feeling that I got. And so, but right off the bat, besides that feeling, that off feeling, Chris Redfield, he shows up and he just brutally kills Mia right in front of you. and he's just like, I'm sorry, Ethan. And then he just shoots her. And it's like, what the hell? It's like, what the absolute hell? Like, that was so weird. And it so much felt like an obvious, like, okay, this didn't really happen. It's either a hallucination, or that's not really Mia, and he's just not telling him. Something is off here. He's not going into this guy's house and executing his wife for no reason. And so then, obviously all this stuff happens, and you get into the village, you're all by yourself, and you think that Rose has been kidnapped, and you think that your wife is dead. And I was kind of immediately not really into the game because of how slow it was. It had such a slow pace. Right off the bat, you have these long cut scenes, and they're just so long, and I hate it. There's so many modern games, and they think they're movies, and so, like, they have these long cut scenes, and they just go on and on and on. And it's like, look, this is a video game. I want to get to the game. Like, the time for cutscenes is there, but, like, I want to get to the game pretty quickly. And, the trailers should be the time where you have these extended cinematic looks, not the actual game, for the most part. What I mean is, like, it was like Red Dead Redemption 2, where you spend like an hour just slowly trotting along through the winter snow and doing all that crap. Well, it was the same thing for this game, and it gets off to such a slow start. And right off the bat, I'm going into these houses in this village, and I thought, this is a really, really badass environment that they created. But I'm going in these houses, and there's no loot, there's no anything. And then you meet your first enemy, and they do this weird thing where, like, you're not supposed to kill all the enemies, and it's very contrived. And that's the feeling that I got from this whole game. Is one of the biggest issues is that it felt very slow and yet very contrived. And once you realized that it was so contrived, that's when the experience went from bad to terrible, like what happened today. Like, it feels like you're trapped. It feels like you're trapped in this terrible experience, and it feels like, oh, okay, I got to do this and I got to do that. Like, it doesn't feel like a fun, game like it should be, where you have puzzles and you got different bosses to beat, different maps to beat, a lot of enemies to kill. It just kind of felt like every single second I had to do something to further the main plot. That's all that mattered, because it was so contrived. There weren't any really meaningful side stories. In fact, that's another thing that happens, is that right off the bat, you go to this village house and you meet the entire town of humans. There's like a little group of humans left in the village, and it's like, great, this is going to be interesting because throughout the game we're going to learn more about the lore of this village. We're going to get interesting characters and have cool side stories with all the different villagers. We're going to get a chance to see like an arc of maybe the villagers standing up to the evil that's around them, and then maybe they all get killed or something. But no, right off the fucking bat, one of them turns into a werewolf and then kills people, and then the house gets set on fire, and literally everyone from the village gets killed. And I thought, wow, that is so dumb. It's so anticlimactic, and it was just clear that they were trying to copy Resident Evil 7, and that was another issue. And I don't think that people have really talked about this. I think that they're so blind to the fact that, you know, the biggest problem being that there's all these different enemies and they try to be so different, but there's also this weird thing where you can tell they're trying to recreate Part 7. They're trying to recreate these certain aspects of the game, and they're trying to copy, like, for instance, that whole part with the village being killed and the house getting set on fire. What did that remind you of? It reminded you of, in Resident Evil 7, or it reminded me of the part where he calls the police officer, and the police officer shows up, and then he gets killed immediately. And so the one person who, you know, shows up to help, he gets killed right off the bat. And then the car, you have the car thing where you keep on running over Jack, and then it gets set on fire, and he gets set on fire. That was really, really creepy as hell. I mean, Resident Evil 7 is a masterpiece. I will say that. So if you're watching this video, you haven't played either game, just play Part 7 and enjoy that, because that is a great game. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Another big disappointing thing is that the marketing made it seem like this was going to be like a vampire game. It made it seem like this was going to be really, really, really refreshing and different and interesting. And I even played the demo, and I thought that was fun and cool too. And, well, what do you know? It was all a misdirect. And so, like, in the first couple hours, right off the bat, you get through the castle, and you can never go there again. Ever. So, it was so weird because, you know, I had played Resident Evil 7 so much that I got the Platinum Trophy, and you had to do a speed run. And this felt like the people who made the game were forcing you to speed run through the castle Dimitrescu, and it was such a letdown. It was so disappointing. And, you know, they were also clearly trying to recreate, you know, the Jack Baker house part, you know, where you have to go around and he's stalking you, and you have to put the heads on the statues to open the door, and they had the medallions in the door, and it just felt like, okay, we're doing that again. But it's really sad because, number one, those were great characters that they created. A great idea to have, like, you know, this tall, giant, sexy vampirist lady, because, like, it felt like such a refreshing and modern take on the vampire, you know, because that's what vampires are. Vampires are supposed to be sexy. They're supposed to be seductive, but also pure evil. And, you know, you see both sides of the coin, but, like, they did such a great job at modernizing that and creating these cool characters that, you know, are sexy. And I've seen some sexy mods and some sexy videos that they've made. They're very interesting. I recommend checking those out, actually. And but what they end up doing with these characters is really, really, really weird, because the two daughters, because this is, you have the maiden, you have Lady Dimitrescu, and then you have her daughters. Her daughters get killed in the same way, in such a repetitive way, such an easy way, and it's just so anticlimactic because you don't get to stake anyone through the heart because they're not real vampires. They're mold vampires, so they're not even like actual vampires. So that's a complete letdown. And then another sad thing is that this is such a beautiful, beautiful castle. They really, really did a good job with the environments that they created in this game, for the most part. For the most part. Because this castle, it was so creepy. And just the candle lighting, it had this really great candle lighting. And it just had the feeling of, like, history. Like, this is history right here. Like, this went on for years and years and years. This horrifying stuff. And now you're trapped in this castle all alone. And you've got to, fend for yourself. It was so cool. It was such a great idea. But the layout of the castle was also really, really strange. People pointed this out, like, the front door is, like, on the side of the castle. And I don't even want to go into the layout of the castle. Like, there's this big room where you have to open this big door. And they have this balcony, but there's no rooms up on the balcony. And there's no stairs to get up there. So there's literally just, like, a decorative balcony in this castle. And it's like, why is that there? Like... And I wish I could show you guys. I wish I had an editor to, like, show you this footage and show you what I'm talking about, because I bet that you guys would get the point a lot better. So I apologize about that. But anyways, but yeah, unfortunately, this story, it goes by in 2 seconds, and it's like, oh yeah, I should also mention there's a really cool dungeon. They have this dungeon environment, and it just, again, you can feel the history. You can feel like this is some Vlad the Impaler type of shit. This is some really creepy, it has the feeling of, like, a proper vampire horror movie. And I wish that was the whole game. I wish that you had the village, which should have been way bigger, and I wish you could have had the castle be way bigger and just have those two environments be the entire game, because I would have loved the game if that were the case. But yeah, you kill everyone there, you get out in, like, 2 seconds, and then it's revealed that, like, this is not really a vampire game or a werewolf game. This is a fairy tale game. But there's not really any fairy tale elements. Like, there's no Hansel and Gretel. There's no Snow White. I guess the Miranda, she takes the form of, like, this old witch, kinda. And she does actually kind of look like the old woman from Snow White in a way. But, I didn't see really any classic fairy tale elements like the Three Bears. Remember that one? Or was it the Three Bears? I can't remember. The Bears and the Goldilocks, that was a fun one. The Simpsons, they did a really good Treehouse of Horror episode, which last year I ranked all the Treehouse of Horrors. And they did a really good one where it was all about different fairy tales, parodying fairy tales, and it was really, really fun. And I think that did such a good job at, doing fairy tales compared to this. This was like, okay, like, I didn't want Resident Evil Fairy Tale. I would not have bought the game if I'd had known that it was Resident Evil Fairy Tale. Okay, I'm going to take a drink. So also, another thing I should say before I get into the other villains. My main issue with the game, and I know that I've said I've had a lot of issues, which I do, and it's just, this game is a really, really flawed game. But the biggest issue, And it's really funny because I was thinking about this as I was playing it. I was thinking, this game reminds me of American Horror Story Hotel. And that season was when American Horror Story completely went off the rails. Because the season decided, hey, we're not going to make this about one thing. We're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. We're going to have all these different monsters. We're going to have every single type of thing you could think of. We're going to have vampires. We're going to have zombies. We're going to have ghosts, serial killers, haunted hotel. We're going to have some weird mattress monsters or something. Like, just all these different elements that they just shoved into one. And instead of just focusing on like one or two elements, that was a very, very bizarre season. And it really just felt like it was so convoluted. It was too much. It was too complicated. And they did the same thing here. There were way too many different elements in this game. There were way too many different like ideas and characters and things. And so that was my biggest issue with the game, was it felt like American Horror Story Hotel. And it felt like, honestly, like, it felt like the season in game form. Like, if you want to play that season as a game, just play this game. So then I thought, okay, maybe there's all these other lords. There's like, let's see, 1, 2, 3. There's 3 other lords. And you have to kill all of them and collect vials of Rose's body, because this is the weird part too. Really, really strange. Rose's body was like split up into pieces and they were put in vials, and there's going to be like a ceremony. And there's so many different questions that I have. Like, why did they allow this Duke guy? There's like a merchant guy, and these lords allow him to sell you stuff. And for some reason, they just don't do the ceremony right off the bat. They don't, like, that's another thing too. Like, when he puts the vials in the altar thing, because you have to collect them and put them in this altar, why wouldn't she just come and collect them as you're putting them in there? Like, she waits until he puts all of them in there to come collect them, but like, why not just go there right away and just put them and just get them and be like, like, now you're going to have to chase me and I'll just kill you right off the bat. Like, there's just so many weird things of like these villains, like allowing Ethan to, do what he wanted to do. And I guess that you could say that a lot of it was like narcissism and overconfidence, arrogance, stuff like that. Because it really just felt like, wow, like, this was like, it was almost like a reality show. It was almost like The Amazing Race. You got to race to all these different environments and collect the clues. And by the way, guys, while I was doing this, Safi texted me, I watched the trailer. Like, what trailer are you talking about? Ed Gein? Because we were talking about the Ed Gein new TV show coming out, but that was weird. It was so random. That's why sometimes I hate doing these reviews, because like I need to put it on silent, because I'll just get these like random notifications. Like, I bet like in 1 minute it'll be like, oh well, President Trump says that he is outlawing the horror genre or something, like just like the most random shit you could think of, or like the Teletubbies are coming back and they're coming to you. Like, that's what I feel like when I do these videos. It's like, it's almost like the universe is like testing my focus. They're testing my focus to see like, hey, you better stay on the ball, little boy. Okay, but I thought, okay, is this game gonna get better? Is it gonna improve, or is it really, really gonna be disappointing? Because I was so disappointed that like in 2 hours or less, you're already out of the castle forever. No more vampires, no more stuff that they promised in the marketing. Next, you have to go to this house, and there were elements of the House Benevito, I think is what her name is. There were elements of that I liked. I liked the atmosphere. I liked the human doll. They made a doll or a dummy type of thing out of Mia. And it was so creepy. And it reminded me of Goosebumps. And I thought that was kind of cool. There was like a giant baby monster. I thought that was cool. But I just hated this sequence. Because I was going around to all the different rooms, all the different like drawers and shit. Because I was like, is there loot anywhere in this house? And then you get all your stuff taken away. And I hated that. And then the boss battle, there's like a boss battle. And it's not even a boss battle. It's literally just hide and seek. Where you have to wander around the same environment 3 times to seek out the doll. There's like a killer doll. And that is the villain. And you have to stab the doll 3 times. God, that was so stupid. And I was like, oh my God. I spent like an hour wandering around with no guns, no weapons, no anything fun to do. All so that I could play hide and seek with a killer doll and stab it 3 times. Like, that was so dumb. And then I left. And I was like, damn. At this point, I did not like the game. Point blank. Like, just period. Like, I already kind of have mixed feelings about it going into it because I just had an off feeling about it because of the whole Mia thing, the intro. They showed the intro, like, as a part of the marketing to draw you in to see, like, what happened here? But it really turned me off. And so anyways, next up, you have Moreau. And he is the stupidest character out of the villains because he's such a cartoon character. And you go through this whole contrived chase thing. And again, very, very contrived. Just like the House Benevito, where your guns are taken away and you go through this contrived one-way path to all the stuff that you have to do. There's no fun side stuff to do. It just feels like you're forced on this path and you have to deal with it. And so there's like a water world type of thing. I mean that's how I would describe it, like water world, where you're running around on all these rafts and it's like a chase and then there's like a boss battle that goes on for like 30 minutes where you have to keep shooting this guy. And that's another thing that I hated about this game, was that it really felt like they took all the survival horror elements out and they replaced them with weird Duke Nukem. Like, this felt like a Duke Nukem game. And Duke Nukem is good because it knows what it is. It is what it is. But Resident Evil is not supposed to be Duke Nukem. So that's what it felt like to me, though. Like, it just had this, like, one-dimensional blockbuster action feel. And you go through this 30-minute boss battle with Moreau, and you got to just keep shooting and shooting and shooting. And it's like, I hate it in games where, like, the villains are like bullet sponges. You know, like, I loved how in Resident Evil 7, you really felt like the bullets that you shot at these characters, it felt like the impact mattered. It felt like stuff happened when you shot the bad characters. And it felt like you had to conserve ammo. And you had to make conscious decisions like, okay, like, shoot that guy in the fucking head now. Get that guy now. Get that guy with the explosive. You know, do all these different things. It was so different. It was so much better. It was so much scarier. And that's another thing. This game was not scary, Resident Evil Village. It was like a blockbuster. It was not scary at all. It was as scary as Shrek. Shrek, okay? Like, that's what it was like. Now, after Moreau, I was like, okay, like, this game is it's not going to get a good grade for me, because this is not what I want Resident Evil to be. And then the game kind of redeems itself a little bit. There are a couple of cool things that happen. There's this really cool part where you go into this castle environment and you're fucking cornered by like 50 werewolves at the same time as you're trying to pull these levers down to open this gate and this door. It's so scary. And it felt like this is the game that I wanted to play the entire time. If you're going to make a werewolf game, make it like this. Like, that was scary. And they were just overwhelming. And they were, they move all over the place. And, they really, really feel like real werewolf lichens, whatever. And so that part was awesome. And then they do a part inside where you're like underground, and that was scary too, with the werewolves chasing you all over the place on the different platforms. That was awesome. And then after a fake out boss, which that boss was cool. I think his name is like Gary, or no, it's not Gary. It starts with a G though. I thought that he was actually cool. He had a sledgehammer. He's like a guardian type of guy. Galorl? I don't know what his name is. But he was fun. He was actually fun to kill. It was actually funny because with a lot of these bosses, like, there was this one alpha werewolf that people said he was really hard. Like, I could barely beat him. And I don't know if it's just because I played it in standard mode, which is like medium mode or what, but like, all I did was just take out my rocket launcher and just go boom, boom, and then he died immediately. So, like, I kept on having that experience with these bosses. I would be like, oh, okay, boo, boo, and then they just fall over, and I'd be like, oh, wow, that was not satisfying. Okay, and also, by the way, I gotta mention a quick side thing. There was this weird kind of little, like, I don't know what you would call it, like this thing that you would do the whole game where they had these little goat statues, and if you destroyed them, they represented Mother Miranda, who's the main villain of the game. If you destroyed these statues, it was supposed to, like, bring horrible stuff to happen to you. And it's really funny because every single time I destroyed one, nothing happened. And I thought, you know what? This is something that easily could have improved the game. Is that, let's say you destroy a statue, and then right off the bat, like, you're surrounded by a group of enemies or something. Or maybe there's like a hallucination or like some sort of a fucked up thing that happens. Like, just imagine how interesting that would be, because it's like, okay, I guess Mother Miranda does take it out on him in the end. She rips the heart right out of his chest, okay? Like, I mean, she took it personally that I destroyed all these statues and that I fucked with her. But, like, she would have done that anyway. So there weren't really any, like, consequences for these statues getting destroyed. Even though they said, like, they warned you, like, something horrible will happen. You will have a curse on you. And there was no curse, so I was disappointed that there wasn't a curse for once. Because isn't that like a classic, like, fairy tale or horror thing? Like, oh, you get a curse. I'm going to curse you. It's like in what's that movie, Drag Me to Hell, with Sam Raimi's movie with the blonde woman and that old woman. She's like, I'm gonna curse you for not letting me have health insurance. That was actually a pretty good movie, I gotta say. I haven't seen it in a long time, But that was a fun movie. That was a fun blockbuster kind of movie. But anyways, the last Lord is Heisenberg, and I don't know why they called him Heisenberg. That was really weird too, because I got this game, and then at the same time I've been watching Better Call Saul commentaries, just for fun, not really like. But it was so weird, like the timing, and like I don't know why they called him Heisenberg. It was such a weird choice, and the character is really weird too, because I have designed this character before. And I know it's not really a very unique design, the character, but a couple of years ago, I actually designed a character that looked exactly like this. I mean, exactly like him. And I still have the drawing. I don't know where it is right now, but thank God I didn't throw it away. But it's just so weird that, like, that kind of psychic stuff happens, like you draw something and then, the character shows up later on, like years and years later, like this was like 2019, yeah, kind of, yeah, around that time. I don't know. Anyways, you go through this whole factory, and again, feels very, very contrived, but I will say, I actually kind of liked the factory. I thought that it was cool. I thought that it was a complex map in comparison to the other ones, and it was kind of scary. I liked the villains. I liked the robot villains, but I was like, okay, we have robots now. Like, that's another element that we're adding to this game that doesn't need to be here. But there were some really cool, like, robot villains, and they were kind of scary, and in particular, I loved the first boss. The boss where he has, like, a propeller arm. He was kind of like a Big Daddy from BioShock, to be honest. Like, that's what I was reminded of. But, like, he was actually a really cool boss battle. Like, that was my favorite boss battle in the whole game. But, okay, so this factory was also, like, a good part of the game. But, again, I think that they should have just made different games. Like, don't put all this stuff into the one game. Make another game where it's just all about, like, a factory and robot zombies or something. But, honestly, probably don't do that, because it's Resident Evil. We don't really want robots in Resident Evil. That's kind of, getting too out of hand. And speaking of out of hand, you meet up with Chris Redfield again, and I hate Chris Redfield in this game. He's got this big fat face, like he's supposed to be like really muscular, but somehow he looks really fat at the same time. It reminds me of when Ben Affleck played Batman, and people would call him Fat Man. Because he had this, like, kind of fat look to him when he was in the costume. And with this guy, he looks so fat. And it's so weird, because it's like they're trying to make him look cool, but they made him look so fat and weird. And but anyways, he gives you, like, a mecha suit, and you have a robot battle. You have a robot battle in a Resident Evil game. And I thought, wow, that cements this game as the worst Resident Evil that I have played, besides 5 and 6. So, then after that, you get killed. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't hate Ethan Winters. I didn't love Ethan Winters. I thought that he was awesome in Part 7. Because this is what he was like. He was like an everyman. He was a stand-in for you. He represented you. Like, what would I be like if I went to Louisiana to look for my girlfriend in this guy's house? What would you be like? What would you do? How would you react? That's why it was so scary. That's why it worked so well. And in this game, I didn't really like his character that much. Like, he was kind of boring. And he didn't really give very many interesting, like, comments about things. He wasn't very... Like, you think about Arkham Knight, and you think about how that whole game, the Joker is haunting you, and he's making all these comments and having this commentary on every single little thing that happens, and it's so interesting because it feels like it adds such a unique layer to the story, and it adds so much character. Whereas this Ethan Winters in Resident Evil Village, he's like a cardboard cutout. But yeah, he gets killed. And then there's a twist. It turns out, and this twist messed me up. It turns out that Ethan died in Resident Evil 7 at the very beginning of the game. And I thought, wow, that is so depressing. It's so sad. It's so, like, I don't even know, like, the words to describe how sad and tragic that is. And dark. It's such a dark... Because you think about Resident Evil 7, it was such a satisfying and accomplishing feeling that you got at the end of that game. Feeling like you were just this regular guy who saved your girlfriend, and, you know, you got through it. But in this game, they're like, no, you got killed. And you're nothing more than a mold form. That was such a really, really interesting twist. I don't know how to feel about it because I don't feel like the game earned that twist. I feel like the character wasn't interesting enough. I feel like they rushed it. It was actually a very fast game. Like, the last day that I played this game, I thought that I had, like, hours and hours left. Like, I thought, like, oh, I'm not going to be finishing a game today. And then I finished it, and I was like, damn, that game really went by pretty fast. You know, it was like playing, like, 3 DLCs in a row. That's how, like, short it was. I don't know what to feel about that twist, though, because on one hand, it's so dark. And it's so ballsy. And it really puts a different perspective on things. And people have brought up, too, they brought up that him getting killed as soon as he got into the Baker house, basically, it's really, really realistic in like a shocking way. Like, the realism is just... It adds another level of being scarier. You know, it's like when you play Call of Duty on realistic mode, you know, where you get shot once and then, you know, you're down, you're dead. So I don't know what to feel about that twist. I can't even say what I feel because, honestly, I just, again, I don't feel like the game earned it. And I don't feel like the game got to a place where I could appreciate or really hate the twist. But I didn't hate the twist. I just kind of, I don't know what to feel. I don't know what to think. And then you play as Chris Redfield. I don't know why you would want to play as him after he, for some reason, this is a big plot hole with the game. And there has not been a single satisfying answer of why he didn't tell Ethan the truth. That Mia was Mother Miranda in disguise, and he killed Mother Miranda, he thought. God, like, are you serious? Like, it's just so stupid. I thought they're going to have some sort of a logical reason for this. They're going to have some sort of explanation. Nope. He doesn't give any explanation at all, and right up until the ending of the game, they're still questioning him of why he did that. So that was really weird. And then Ethan comes back out of nowhere. The pacing of this game is terrible, by the way, but he comes back out of nowhere to have a boss battle with Mother Miranda. And I really fucked up because all I had was shotgun shells and sniper rifle bullets. So I was fighting Mother Miranda with a sniper rifle, guys. Like, it was really, really funny. It was such an extended boss battle. Like, it went on for like 30 minutes. I don't know why it was so long. It was so repetitive and annoying. And, again, she was just another bullet sponge. And I kept on having to pick up new sniper rifle bullets and just using the sniper rifle. Like, I was really screwed, guys. Like, I wish that you guys had seen my playthrough, because I really, really scrapped my way to victory in this game. Like, I had the sniper rifle, and that was basically it. I had some mines. I had one pipe bomb. I didn't have anything. I was screwed. Okay, like, I really, really did not ration my resources well, which, to be honest, like, I just really didn't care, because it was so easy that at a certain point I was like, you know what, whatever, like, I'm not even gonna buy. I'm just gonna waste everything. I'm gonna shoot bullets into the air just to see, like, what it's like to shoot, like, X kind of gun. That's how you know that it's not a good Resident Evil game, because that's one of the key tenets that makes Resident Evil scary and makes it good, is that you have to ration out your bullets and your resources and your explosives, etc., etc. So, I didn't like the final boss battle. I did not like Mother Miranda. And overall, the game ends with Ethan making a really unnecessary and stupid sacrifice. I don't even, like, there's no actual reason given why he had to sacrifice himself. Like, he just decides to do it. It's that typical cliche movie scene where, like, the main character's like, okay, guys, I'm gonna have to do this. And they're like, no, wait, no, you don't. And then he's like, yep, I do. And it's just like, oh, okay. Very, very contrived is what I'll say. And then they have another thing at the end of the game where you see Ethan's daughter. She's a teenager now, Rose. I just didn't feel any emotion there at all. You're supposed to feel all this emotion. You're supposed to be like, wow, like, this is such, like, a devastating ending. And they say, like, the story of the father has ended. That was queer too. But I didn't feel anything, because I didn't feel like the game earned this epic conclusion. You know, like, Ethan only had one game, and then immediately you kill him off. And it was shitty too, because it had such, like, an epic possibility to it, to where, like, yes, oh yes, Ethan is going to be pulled back into, you know, having to kill zombies and monsters and shit again to save Mia, to do that. That's another thing I didn't like, by the way, is that Mia was basically taken out of the picture for the whole game. I mean, they have a feminist term. I don't like feminism at all. You guys know that. But they have a term called fridging, where you take a female character and you basically just get rid of her for the whole story so that you don't have to have her do anything. And that's what they did here in this game with Mia. And it really frustrated me, because it really felt like they did it just because they had trouble coming up with what she could do in the plot. You know, like, it was like laziness. It was like, we just got to get rid of her so that she won't make our jobs harder, you know. Let's see, is there anything else? No, not really. So overall, this was a messy, convoluted, overly complicated, and rushed experience. It was very contrived. It was very weird because there were moments where I had fun. I'm not going to say that the game was like the worst game I've ever played, but I got to say, this is like I don't know if I want to play this again. Like, I'm tempted because I'm one of those guys who likes to complete things. I like to go back and challenge myself to, and, complete all the different little things. But this was just such a not fun experience, and the story was crap, and it was so contrived. So there's not really a feeling where, like, you're having fun, you're exploring. You just have this very, like, it's like a roller coaster in a way. It's like you're on a roller coaster and you can't get off. And it's like, okay, like, I don't really like this roller coaster. Even though I know, obviously, you wouldn't want to get off in the middle of a roller coaster. But it's like one of those roller coasters where you're strapped in and you didn't want to be on a roller coaster, So, yeah, I'm really stuck on what to grade this game. Because I don't think that it earns an A or a B. But I think that giving it a D would be too harsh. And I don't want to just punish the game because I didn't like the ending and I didn't like certain things. So I'll be nice and I'll give this game a C, just a straight C. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider going over to our Patreon. It is the Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies Patreon. We are going to have tons of behind-the-scenes content because I do filmmaking. So there's going to be filmmaking bloopers, deleted scenes, behind-the-scenes, commentaries. We're going to have bonus movie reviews, TV reviews, all sorts of content that you will never see on YouTube. So exclusive content. And no matter which tier you join, you will get your name in the credits of one of my filmmaking projects. And then, please like this video and comment and tell me what you thought of Resident Evil Village. Did you really like the game? Or did you hate the game? And even if you like the game, are there some things that I said that you agree with? Because I'd be curious to know. I know that the general consensus is that we're all kind of disappointed that the whole game wasn't in the castle. And that the whole game wasn't about vampires. Like, I mean, there was even like this cool part where you go on the rooftop and you go to all the different, I don't know what you call them, but all the different like top parts of the castle. And, that was scary too. I mean, it just had such an epic feeling, and it just felt like that could have been such a cool game. And then also, please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.